Good morning, everyone, and welcome into episode now 12 of the Wake and Take. We've gone 2 full weeks, and now the second day of the third week. We're grooving over here at the Wake and Take, and I'm glad to be spending yet another morning with you guys. I'm on the Instagram, I'm on the TikTok. I think I'm even streaming on Twitter today, as well as the YouTube. So tons of stuff to talk about. There were 69 free agent signings yesterday, and I mean, I have them all for you. We'll see later if I go free agency signing, by free agency signing. But at the very least, we've got some big stories to talk about. I'm excited to get into it. So without further ado, let's do it. So the biggest news that came out yesterday, and we're just going to start with the biggest news, which is unusual here. But as I said, there's so much news that you might as well start with the biggest stuff to reward you guys who have come out early to listen. And so the biggest story is going to be that Austin Ekeler wants out of Los Angeles. He is done being with the Chargers. He is not going to get paid the way that he wants to get paid. And so he's leaving. He said, I'm done. I want to speak with other teams. I want to get traded, all of this fun stuff. And I mean, as a business standpoint, it makes sense. As a football standpoint, that those kind of moves never really make sense to me when you're with a team that uses you so well, that you've found so much success on. You've been a top fantasy football running back for them the past 2 seasons. I would assume you would just want to stay with the team that is making you a really good football player. But I mean, Austin Ekeler is a really good football player regardless of where he plays. It's just, I mean, especially last season, he was the heartbeat of the offense. I mean, we saw Justin Herbert had the 32nd average depth of target when he was passing the ball. And that's because of Austin Ekeler. It's because he was just throwing it to Austin Ekeler because everyone was hurt. So I don't know. I mean, like, I get it. You want to make more money and everything. But I mean, at the end of the day, too, you're an all-pro, all-star running back because of the way the Chargers have used you. And I mean, I think he's going into like 26, 27-year-old season. He has had injury concerns in the past. I mean, I feel like you just kind of want to ride it out if you're Austin Ekeler. However, I get it, too, at the end of the day. And so I'm excited to see where he does end up going, if anywhere at all. There are plenty of times that we just see nothing even happen after things are reported, that players want out. Like Deebo Samuel last year was a big one that everyone thought was going to be leaving the 49ers, and he didn't. So we'll see if it even goes that path. I do think that there's probably some truth to this. I do think that we'll probably be seeing Austin Ekeler in another uniform solely because he's a running back, and front offices just are disrespectful to running backs in general. And it's not like the Chargers hold any loyalty to anyone ever. Their front office and ownership in general is one of the worst in the league. So, I mean, I could see it happening. I could see them shipping him out, get some sort of return, and then bring in someone. I mean, like, imagine they bring in Leonard Fournette, who is, similar enough to Austin Ekeler and going to be way cheaper and a good one-season rental. I mean, there's other ones. I mean, they could bring in Jerick McKinnon instead of him re-signing with the Chiefs. He could sign with the Chargers. All sorts of fun moves could be made, and they could address the concerns in draft. Maybe they just go get Tyjae Spears. We'll see. Chargers have plenty of options. Austin Ekeler is going to have plenty of options. That dude is really good at football and liked among the NFL as well. He's a great personality. He's basically going to have a choice of where he can go. I've seen so far that the top suitor would be the Bengals. I would love that if he's replacing Joe Mixon. Absolutely love that. I think that'd be a great move. So Austin Ekeler leaving Los Angeles, something to keep your eye on, something that we'll definitely be talking about on the show plenty more. What the hell is going on with Aaron Rodgers? We don't know. Trey Wingo came out yesterday and said the deal is done. Then we hear Adam Schefter come out and say that, no, there isn't anything done. Nothing has happened. That was Rappaport, sorry. And then Schefter came out and said that they're being cautiously optimistic. Thank you to Harry Snowman with some stuff in the chat. He's given some quotes here. Trey Wingo essentially saying, yeah, the deal is done. And then Ian Rappaport came out and said, I wish something had happened, but nothing has happened. And then Adam Schefter comes out and says that the Jets are cautiously optimistic. I think it's just one of those things where it's going to have to take some time. I do still personally believe that the move or the decision that Aaron Rodgers came to in his darkness retreat was that he probably wants to stay with Green Bay. I think that makes sense. But as we saw last week, the Packers in general do not want him to return. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what his personal decision was or is. And I do think he will ultimately end up on the Jets. I see someone here on Instagram, Zach Johansson, has said that all the Jets players, they posted confirming it too. This is true. We've been seeing it all over. Sauce Gardner melted his cheese hat, all of this stuff. So I think it's going to happen. I think it's just going to kind of quiet for some reason. And I also do think that Aaron Rodgers wants someone else to come with him. Last week, we talked about Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner reported, as if he's a reporter, that it's probably going to be a package deal to when Aaron Rodgers comes to the Jets. And so it makes sense that they would be bringing someone else, whether it be Randall Cobb, whether it be Alan Lazard, who I've been seeing this morning being talked about as, the Jets trying to work out a contract with Alan Lazard. Robert Tonyan, maybe, but they'll probably just roll with the tight ends they have. I see a good point here on YouTube. Franz says that Rodgers is going to announce it on the Pat McAfee show today. Makes sense. Makes sense. That is the most Aaron Rodgers move ever. If he's waiting to go on the McAfee show to talk about where he's going, that is the most Aaron Rodgers thing I've ever heard, and makes total sense. So I'm not getting too worried about nothing being confirmed yet. I think we know what's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Aaron Rodgers did say on his Darkness Retreat podcast that he doesn't want to drag this decision out. He doesn't want to follow in Brett Favre's footsteps where he was wishy-washy. He does want to get it done. So again, sooner rather than later, we just also have to remember that this is the NFL and lots of things have to be worked out before it becomes perfect, before it becomes complete. So, just again, keep your eye on that. I think we will see a move here within the week at least, and we'll know for sure. And if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, that's good stuff for everyone. We're going to get some deja vu here because, that's been one of the big topics on Wake and Take the past couple of weeks. But Breece Hall going through the roof. He's a great pass-catching running back, and Aaron Rodgers likes to use the pass-catching running backs. Garrett Wilson, of course, wide receiver one with Aaron Rodgers, always successful. And then, whoever they bring in from the Packers, I'm going to use in DFS, and I'm going to use as bench filler just because, Aaron Rodgers' loyalty. He'll still use it. He'll still use them, even if it's not the best option on the offense. They will still be reliable options just because of their history with Aaron Rodgers. Let's just talk about these free agency moves. There's plenty of them. I'm going to figure out how to break it down. I did break it down by position last night. And like I said, there were 69 signings. So there's some other stuff. There are players released, and I made the executive decision to not worry about the players that were released because eventually I'll talk about them signing somewhere. So first off, I see in the chat, this is something I didn't even have in my notes, and this actually makes it the 69th signing in my notes if I had wrote it. Jacoby Myers has signed with the Raiders per Aaron Stewart and Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, but Aaron Stewart is the most credible source out of those three. And that is just fantastic. I tell you what, I was going to save this for the end, but seeing this in the YouTube comments, Jacoby Myers to the Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo to the Raiders, I'm getting excited. I know people don't like Jimmy Garoppolo as a fantasy quarterback for good reason. He doesn't have the highest ceiling. However, he's still a pretty damn good quarterback. Pretty damn good. And he's going to make this offense efficient, even if it's not world beating. You're going to be able to pencil them in for 20 points a game. And that's pretty damn good. That's good. And I think every single Raiders player is going to be fantasy relevant, even Jimmy Garoppolo in Superflex leagues. We're going to be talking about Devontae Adams not really missing a beat, even if he's not going to have a huge depth of target. He's still going to do really well in the red zone as he has in the past. Hunter Renfrow is going to be viable in PPR formats again, and Jacoby Myers. I think at least he has history with Josh McDaniels. That helps. So it's even if he's going to a new team, he's going to have less to work out in terms of playbook learning, in terms of offense learning, and I mean, man, Harry Snowman says it here in the chat. Devontae Adams can't be triple covered. Someone's going to be open every play, and Jimmy Garoppolo is the perfect quarterback for that. I mean, so is every single quarterback in the NFL. You know, if you're going to have open wide receivers, you're pretty much going to find them. But Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the better ones at that, just because he's more of a distributor. He's not worried about the stats at the end of the day. He's just trying to get a first down, and then another first down, and then another first down, and then eventually a touchdown. He's not trying to make it quick. And I mean, again, when I say every Raiders player is going to do well, I think Josh Jacobs is going to continue to have success because they're going to run the ball plenty. This is going to be a very, very methodical offense. And as a football fan, I'm excited for it. As a fantasy football fan, I'm honestly pretty excited for it, at least in super flex leagues on the side of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he'll be someone that you can put in, especially being in the AFC West. You're going to see some shootouts against the Chiefs, against the Chargers, potentially against the Broncos if Russell Wilson bounces back. So I love it. I really do love the move, and I think this is perfect for Josh McDaniels. You know, he's on the hot seat for sure. And so the fact that he doesn't have to develop a quarterback like some were projecting the Raiders to have to do, like bring in a rookie, I think this works better for him. And they can still bring in a quarterback to develop behind Jimmy Garoppolo, a la Trey Lance. So I mean, I just think it's the perfect move. I think the Raiders will not miss a beat. I think they'll come out and be a competitive team all year, and maybe a playoff team if all things fall right. But it is a tough division, so probably not. But I'm probably going to be the most excited person at this entire network about the Raiders. I know Jimmy Garoppolo gets some hate, but growing up a Patriots fan and everything, I have some respect for him. And I mean, there's a reason he's been into the Super Bowl a couple times. There's a reason he's been to the NFC Championships, and there's a reason that the 49ers have done well with him in the playoffs. Granted, they've done well with every quarterback in the playoffs, but still, he's a good quarterback, and I don't think he gets enough respect. I do see here on TikTok, Derek Carr better than Jimmy G. I would say Derek Carr definitely has the higher ceiling than Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, he's going to be able to score more points upside wise than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, like, if I'm running an organization and I don't want to spend a ton of money on a quarterback, but I still want to have an efficient offense, I mean, like, Jimmy Garoppolo is the type of quarterback I'm going after. He's Gardner Minshew, but a little bit better. And yeah, he might be worse than Derek Carr. But the offense isn't going to feel that at all. They're going to be just as good, if not better, because, I mean, the dude keeps turning it over. 14 interceptions the past 2 seasons for Derek Carr. So, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to throw 14 interceptions. He might throw 10, you know, he might throw 9. But I really like it. I really do like the team next year. And, I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess I can't keep repeating it. I can't just keep repeating it. So we'll move on. But Jimmy Garoppolo to the Raiders, Jacoby Myers to the Raiders. I think that's fantastic. I'm getting the tinglies talking about the Raiders. Defensive line moves. There's a ton of them here, and I've surprisingly already talked for 13 minutes. So it looks like I'm not going to go player by player. But we're going to talk about this for a little bit. As we know, the Falcons' new defensive coordinator was Ryan Nielsen, who was the co-defensive coordinator for the Saints and the defensive line coach specifically for the Saints. Well, he has brought over 2 pass rushers. Well, I guess just 2 defensive linemen from the Saints. He brought over defensive tackle David Onyemata from the Saints, and then also they just signed linebacker/edge Caden Ellis. Both of them are going to be used pretty heavily. And it's interesting to see these coordinators from teams go to new teams and then bring in some players that they're familiar with. Some people complain about it. You know, you want to give more players more chances. But at the end of the day, I mean, if a player's worked in your system, why not bring them in? And then if, you know, you want to replace them, you can replace them then. But the Falcons in general, not only did they bring in 2 defensive linemen from the Saints, they've made tons of moves. They really, really did. They made a move pretty much everywhere. They signed safety Jesse Bates to 4-year, $64 million contract. I imagine that means not great things for Richie Grant for any of you that care. But that's a really great signing for them. They've definitely needed some help at the safety position. Yeah, that's their defensive back move. I want to say they signed or re-signed, I guess you would say. Why is the name slipping my mind? I know I wrote it down. Let me just find it. Yeah, Chris Lindstrom. right guard Chris Lindstrom. They signed him to a 5-year, $105 million contract. That is the highest paid guard in NFL history, the only one making $100 million for good reason. For good reason. They also traded for Patriots tight end Jonnu Smith. They gave up a 7th round pick, which is totally worth it. He's a really good blocking tight end and a decent receiving tight end too. So they'll be able to use Kyle Pitts out wide a bit more, and then they'll be able to use Jonnu Smith as the de facto tight end. I don't think it really hurts Pitts' value as much as some people would say. I think the problem with Pitts is more so that we've overvalued him because of his ceiling. He does still have a great ceiling, but I just don't think he'll ever have the consistency that you would want from a top 5 tight end. But he's still going to be a top 5 tight end because he's still one of the few tight ends that could score you 30 points in a week, even if the next week is followed up by 2 points. They also re-signed their fullback Keith Smith, and then finally, in the wee hours of the night, they signed Taylor Heinicke to a 2-year, $20 million deal. I'm assuming they're bringing him in as a backup to start. They're bringing him in to compete during the offseason. But if you guys tune into the trade guys, you'll know that 2 weeks ago I said Desmond Ridder is a buy candidate. I said that he will be starting for the Falcons week 1. I am still all in on that, at least for week 1. I do think Taylor Heinicke is a kid who can ball. He's got that dog in him. He's got that dog in him. And so I do think if Desmond Ridder starts to slip, that we will see Taylor Heinicke starting. And I might go as far to say that Taylor Heinicke would be pretty damn good. I think that I don't even have to say I think. I know that the Falcons run a really good offense. They really do. It's a team that doesn't really stop moving when they get the ball, even if it's only 2 yards of play, 3 yards of play. They continue to just churn out positive yardage. And I think Taylor Heinicke could do really well in that system. And he is a bit of a mobile quarterback that a lot of people don't really give him credit for. He's a true baller. He really is. And he's got that dog in him. So if Desmond Ridder does start to slip up, I think we could be seeing him start. And I think we could see him do decent. I really do. But again, I do think we're going to be seeing Desmond Ridder start. And I think he'll get the benefit of the doubt for at least the first quarter of the season. Just because, they want to see more action with him. They want to give him the full off season and then being the starter and everything. But Taylor Heinicke is definitely good enough to start in the NFL. And, like I said, if Desmond Ridder slips up, he's going to be starting in the NFL. The Bears also went out and made some moves. Namely, they signed some linebackers, but they also signed defensive lineman DeMarcus Walker to a 2-year contract. And there's some other stuff. The linebackers. See, this is big. They signed 2 great linebackers, really. Linebacker Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills, 4 years, $72 million with 50 of it guaranteed. He has no athletic ranking on our website because he didn't fully do the combine. However, he is super athletic, 89th percentile 40-yard dash, 97th percentile speed score. He is all over and was all over for the Bills. And then they also signed linebacker from the Eagles, TJ Edwards, to a 3-year, essentially $20 million with 12 of it guaranteed. What's good about this is, these are 2 very, 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 these are 2 really good linebackers, genuinely. Both of them, when healthy, were every week starters in IDP formats. And honestly, every week, top 12 starters in IDP formats. So they made good moves. I'm a little sad. I do think Jack Sanborn, the rookie linebacker they had last year, was doing really well when he came in to fill in for Roquan Smith. But it looks like they didn't think enough, and he did get injured to end the year, so maybe that's part of it. But the Bears were making plenty of moves. They also signed the right guard from the Titans, Nate Davis, 3 years, $30 million. And of course, we already know they traded the 101 and everything. So, the Bears are trying to compete. They really are. And I do think they will. And especially with that defensive help, which they really, really needed. The Falcons and the Bears, to me, are the biggest winners. And now the Raiders, actually, off of my tangent from earlier with finding out Jacoby Myers was signed. Those 3 teams, Bears, Falcons, Raiders, I think they made some really, really great moves that are pointing them in the right direction. We know now that Lamar Jackson is definitely not going to Atlanta with the signing of Taylor Heinicke. I think we probably knew that with the huge contract that they gave Lindstrom, just because they probably wouldn't have the money to bring in Lamar. And we know the Bears are ready to compete. The Bears want to win the NFC North, and they think they can with Aaron Rodgers probably leaving. So It's everything in the NFL is definitely heating up. This was a huge day in free agency. Like I said, 69 moves. We've already hit the 20-minute mark, so I'm just going to go through and kind of talk about some of the bigger ones instead of every single one. So I talked about the Saints losing some players to the Falcons. They lost a ton of defensive linemen. They really did. They also lost a defensive tackle to the Panthers. And then the Vikings signed their former first-round pick edge, Marcus Davenport, which, fun enough, is our 40th most athletic edge in our entire database of 458 edges. It's a one-year deal. It's $13 million. I think that this means with the Vikings bringing them in that they might actually be able to release Zadarius Smith per request, as he did ask for that. So we'll see where he ends up going, or if he, does stay with the Vikings, but I don't think he will, considering he wants to leave, and now they brought in an edge. And it was Shy Tuttle. That was the defensive tackle that the Panthers signed. The 49ers defense just continues to get better. They bring in defensive tackle Javon Hargrave for 4 years, $80 million. One of the best defensive tackles in the league. The Eagles continue to lose players. So it was Javon Hargrave. I just talked about TJ Edwards. They're going to be losing James Bradbury. They're probably going to lose Darius Slay. They're losing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I have no clue what the Eagles are doing at all when it comes to defense. I really don't. So I don't even know if they're going to make the Super Bowl again, which of course wasn't guaranteed anyway. But I mean, that's going to be a way worse defense for sure next season. And that was a really big part of their success. Cornerbacks, the Bucs are re-signing Jamel Dean, the 8th most athletic cornerback in our entire database of 600 cornerbacks. So that's a good re-signing for them. Patrick Peterson is signing with the Steelers for 2 years, $6 million guaranteed, and he promises to retire after these 2 seasons. So good for him. Good for Patrick Peterson. I'm surprised he's playing another 2 years. I'm pretty sure he's already in his 30s. So, I mean, that Steelers are getting a deal. They're doing that because Cameron Sutton is leaving. The Panthers signed Bengals safety Von Bell, so the Bengals lost both of their safeties yesterday. Crazy stuff. Oh my God, another Eagles player that I forgot to mention. They lost Marcus Epps too. So wow, the Eagles are losing everyone. Harry Snowman here on YouTube says they're not going to win the division. I don't know. It's definitely going to be a lot more open. Definitely a lot more open. I think they should have been the favorite last season. I definitely knew that they were going to win it. But the Cowboys and Giants now, they have a little bit of a case. The Eagles will not be able to stop anyone, which leads to big time Timmy Jim, a YouTube comment. That Eagles bad defense means great stuff for the Eagles offense. As if they weren't already really good in fantasy, but they're going to continue to be really good for fantasy because now they have no defense at all. They're going to have to score some points. Fun little tidbit about the Patriots. They're bringing back cornerback Jonathan Jones. So now their cornerback room is Jonathan Jack and Marcus Jones. So we'll see if NFL wide receivers can keep up with the Joneses. And then some linebackers other than Tremaine Edmonds and the ones that the Bears signed that I just want to shine a little spotlight on. The Broncos will be bringing back Alex Singleton. That's a great move. It's only a $9 million guaranteed contract. And for those of you who don't know, he actually had a game last season in week 6 against the Chargers. He had 21 tackles by one player. The record in the NFL was 24, set by Luke Kuechly in 2013. So this Alex Singleton guy is a guy who does have a nose for the ball. And yeah, it's a really good signing. I like it a lot. And then Bobby Okereke, he's going to the Giants, leaving the Colts. 107th most athletic linebacker out of our 493 linebackers in the database. Very good player. Offensive line, kind of already talked about it. The Chiefs did lose on Andrew Wiley. He's going to the Commanders with his coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. Good stuff for Sam Howell. And Jawan Taylor is going to the Chiefs, replacing Andrew Wiley. The Jaguars are losing Jawan Taylor, so we'll see how the Jaguars decide to fix that. And the Panthers are bringing back center Bradley Bozeman. That's good stuff. You need that center. And no big, really, running back or wide receiver signings. I don't think, well, we talked about Jacoby Myers, but I think that's the only wide receiver that was signed within the last day. But some small running back moves, just because we're a fantasy football website at the end of the day. Matt Breida is staying with the Giants, so still a handcuff to Saquon Barkley. And the Texans are signing Mike Boone. He's actually got a great profile, and he's an explosive runner. I had him in one of my really, really deep leagues last year. So I wanted to watch him to see if he would ever break out and how he looked. I mean, he genuinely is explosive. And so I think he could have a good role on the Texans as a change of pace back to Dameon Pierce. I really do. So that's a good little flyer, good little handcuff for sure. And quarterbacks to end the day. Actually, before we get to that, just real quickly, the Colts signed Matt Gay. He's going to be the highest paid kicker in the NFL. So the Ravens are going to have to do something to appease Justin Tucker, but it's a 4-year, $22.5 million contract. And now Matt Gay is the highest paid kicker in the NFL. Good stuff for him. And finally, the quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo, we already talked about, signed with the Raiders. Jarrett Stidham signed with the Broncos. So, the Raiders do need a backup quarterback. Easton Stick is still going to be Justin Herbert's backup with the Chargers. Jameis Winston, believe it or not, I don't know why he made this move. I would not do it if I were him, as they benched me for Andy Dalton for no reason, really. Andy Dalton sucks. But he's re-signing with the Saints. I would have wanted to leave, but Jameis Winston is re-signing with the Saints. It's 1 year's $8 million, and he's going to back up Carr, presumably, for some reason. I mean, that's good for the Saints. If I were Jameis Winston, I would have probably just tried to go somewhere else. But hey, it is what it is. The Dolphins are signing Mike White. He's obviously going to be a backup at first. But if we do see these Tua Tagovailoa health concerns continue, Mike White is going to be very good for fantasy. I am just picturing the bullets to Tyreek Hill now, to Jalen Waddle. I mean, he slings the ball. And I mean, if he's going to be throwing it 50 times a game to that wide receiver core, he's going to be really good for fantasy. And last but not least, two more, actually. The Texans signed Case Keenum as a backup to whatever rookie they bring in. And then the 49ers have brought in Sam Darnold to back up Trey Lance, presumably to back up Brock Purdy. But he's got to have a chance to compete in the offseason for sure with Trey Lance. If there's a team in the NFL, and this is a hot take, if there was a team in the NFL that could turn Sam Darnold's career around, it is the 49ers. Quarterbacks succeed in that system. So I think it is an interesting signing. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on Sam Darnold. Definitely not going to be picking him up anywhere or anything, but, we could be talking about him halfway through the season having to start a couple games and doing pretty well in those couple games. So I'm not going to write off Sam Darnold's career just yet, just because he went to the 49ers. I think that's a great landing spot. Let me see if you guys have any questions before we sign off for the day. Someone disagrees with my Raiders take. That's fair enough. Where's King Henry going? I assume he's probably going to be staying with the Titans, but I did see that they are shopping him, but I just don't think they're going to get the return that they want for him just because of his age. Cortland Sutton, I do think will be shopped. This is the same guy asking questions. I do think that he will be traded. Don't necessarily know where he'll go. Could see him going to I think the Chargers are going to bring someone in. So I'm just going to probably keep saying the Chargers when it comes to wide receiver, but I don't know if it's really going to be Sutton. They need to bring in a rookie. The Lions is a good choice, as they went on to say. And where does Levante David go? I don't know. I'm not going to be great at picking a linebacker landing spot. But probably a team who just lost a few. So, maybe the Eagles. I think that'd actually be a great spot. The Eagles for Levante David on the Eagles. They just lost TJ Edwards. I think he could fill in real nicely right there. Someone on Instagram has asked what happened to Joe Mixon, or what happens to Joe Mixon. I mean, he's going to end up playing for sure. These kind of things drag on, and then they still get to play football. So I do think he's going to be playing, but I don't think he's going to be with the Bengals this year for sure. And then lastly but not least, I see a bunch of people here on YouTube asking about D-Hop. He's going to be traded, I assume. They're only asking for a second-round pick, which I do think is fair for a one-year rental for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't care about the age. You're still going to get a season out of him, and he's still really, really good. So a second-round pick for him, I think, is money, especially it comes to draft day, which is, I'll add to that, I think that's the time that we will see DeAndre Hopkins get traded. I think it will be on draft day, just because a team will see the wide receiver that they wanted to pick get picked, and then they'll trade their pick to go get DeAndre Hopkins. And then last but not least, Sir Duresh on YouTube agrees that the Chargers will be drafting a wide receiver in the first round. I hope so too. They need to bring in a young wide receiver to fill the shoes of Keenan Allen when he eventually retires, and to make up for Mike Williams being inconsistent all the time. I would love to see them get like Jackson Smith and Jigba or something. They might have to trade up for that, but still, I think that would be fantastic. I think that'd be the best landing spot possible. What a day, fellas. Thank you all for joining me. tons of news to talk about today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow as we're going to have more free agency stuff to recap and everything. It's been a fun day. Thank you for joining me. You have a fantastic Tuesday, and I'll see you all tomorrow on Wednesday.